Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of the mini bike restoration video. And since the last video, I have gotten some parts in. I've got the rear sprocket, a band brake, and drum in case I want to mount it on the back wheel, but I'm going to see about possibly mounting this to the clutch. And speaking of which, we got the clutch, we got our grips with twist throttle, brake lever, throttle cable, brake cable, as well as a chain. I'm pretty sure I got all this stuff off of Amazon, and I will leave a link in the description to each of these things. So if you're looking to get some of this stuff yourself, I've already done all the hard work of finding the best deal on all this stuff. So I'll leave the links below. Also, on another note, I'm starting to make unboxing videos anytime I get new parts in for any of these projects, and I am posting those exclusively on my Patreon page. You can become a member for $1. It's not a big deal, and you'll get video updates on what's going on with these projects, any of these unboxing videos, and it would really help the channel out a lot because YouTube has decided to start demonetizing some of my videos, primarily the How to Grow Tobacco series, because apparently that's a taboo subject now. Those were actually some of my more popular early videos that were kind of keeping the channel afloat for a long time, but now YouTube is taking that away from me. So if you're interested in becoming a patron and getting access to all those other videos and content, I'll leave the link in the description, and there will also be a link on the end screen of this video. So let's get to it. In the last video, I alluded to the fact that I might try saving these wheels by welding up these little holes and things that are all through them where they're rusted out. So I figured I would just go ahead and give that a shot. So I picked out one of the smaller holes that was maybe only 1/8 of an inch or so, and I took the wire wheel on the angle grinder to it to get the area cleaned up to see about putting some splatter globbity glook weld all over the back side of it to plug the hole, and that 1/8 inch hole turned into this gaping hole just by using the wire brush on it. So I think it's pretty safe to say that these guys are absolutely 100% done. They look like they've been on the bottom of the ocean or something. There's no metal left, really. There's nothing to weld. They would just fall apart from cleaning them. So, Harbor Freight to the rescue. Two of these guys. They're the 10-inch wheels that you could use as replacements, like on a wheelbarrow or like a hand truck dolly or something like that. But when I looked online to see about replacement wheels that are similar to the ones that were on the bike, they were just completely cost prohibitive. I mean, it would have cost probably $150 just to find some decent wheels, and then I would still have to buy the tires and tubes, which is like another $100 or so. And I'm not interested in making a $500 mini bike that's worth $350. So went and picked up these guys, and they were like 13 bucks a piece. Of course, I used a coupon and got my free item, as always. But I'm going to be faced with the task of figuring out how to make this to where I can mount the rear sprocket on there. I tried using the wire brush on these this front fork here with very little improvement. So I'm going to move on to plan B to try to get these cleaned up and looking like something, and switch to a orbital sander with 220 grit paper on it and just see if I can just take this down to metal. So these things have some pretty heavy duty corrosion going on, where they're pretty well pitted, where I can't get down in there to make that look like anything. But I'm just going to continue on, because even if I can't get them to look good just by sanding them down, I'll still need to sand them down anyway if I'm going to paint them. So I'm just going to continue on with that and see how far along I can get with getting this stuff off of there. Alright, so that did not go as well as hoped, but I do have them sanded down and smooth now, so as much as I didn't want to use paint on this project and just kind of keep patina, that's a little too much patina. So I'm gonna have to switch to the paint to make this look at least halfway decent. And the first thing I gotta do right now, I'm gonna go ahead and get these clamps off for the handlebars. Maybe, possibly. Or maybe I can try something else. Sometimes you just need a little more leverage. Uh-oh, that one's turning. I don't like the look of that. I don't like that at all. That could end up being a nightmare. Let me turn it back straight. Okay, so those are going to get taped up. The last thing I want to do is make more work and aggravation for myself. I'm not a fan. Alright, that works for me. These springs definitely don't look great, but they could look worse. So I'm going to see what it looks like if they get taped up and we keep the paint off of them. Alright, got those taped up, and now I'm actually just going to cover up the bottom part here where I'd sanded it so much. I'm not sure what I want to do here. I'm thinking flat black all through here, and I might try doing silver on the bottom part of the forks here, and if I don't like it, I can always just let it dry, scuff it up a little bit, and go with like gloss black or something like that. But I think I'm going to try doing silver first and see what it looks like. All right. All right, these are dry, so let's see what we got here. Get this off the end of here. Not too bad. Now to tape up this part and paint the silver. In retrospect, I should have painted this part first because this was actually kind of a pain to tape up where these aren't. But oh well. And I'm going to hit them with a little bit of metallic silver Rust-Oleum. I could have primed them first, but I didn't. Alright, I'm going to let that dry for about 5 or 10 minutes and come back and hit it with another coat. Alright, now I'm going to let that dry thoroughly before I move on. Alright, these are good and dry. Let's peel the tape and everything off here and see what we got. Well, I think those are going to look pretty decent. They're not too shiny and pretty looking that it's going to clash with the rest of the bike, so I'm pleased with it. Alright, I got the front fork just kind of sitting on there, and I took the old engine and kind of wedged it in the back so it doesn't want to keep falling forward on me. And now I need to get in there, because those spacers that were on there aren't really going to work for what we want to do. So I need to get in here and measure this distance and cut just a one-piece spacer to fit in there. Alright, so it's looking like it's about 1.5 inches, but I'm actually going to go a little under that because I don't want it to be exact, because that would be a nightmare trying to wedge it in here, hold this, and get the bolt through there at the same time. So I'm actually going to cut it just slightly under so it just slides in really nice. That'll make some sparks. Alright, I got my spacer now, and I just kind of cleaned up the edges on the bench grinder. I'm going to use this washer as well in conjunction with the spacer. I'm just going to put it on the bottom. The tricky part is going to be getting this all together by myself. And I've only got 2 hands, so this will be interesting. I got that part. Now got to get this washer in there somehow. Come on. All right. Actually managed to do that. Starting to look like something now. Something very, very incomplete. As for these handlebars, they cleaned up okay-ish. They still have a bit of corrosion and stuff on it, but it's an amount of corrosion that I can actually live with, and they pretty much match the rest of the bike. For some reason, this side over here, it doesn't want to go down in there. I think I see why. It's kind of chewed up right here, and it looks like the bar won't go all the way down in there because it's hitting on some of this chewed up stuff. So I'm going to take a file to that and take care of it. All right, I'm going to try to get these handlebars on, and I have brand new nice shiny bolts to put them on with. New lock washers as well. give these a final adjustment once the bike is done, and we'll put them at a comfortable angle, but this will work for our purposes right now. All right, now on to the next step, once I figure out what that's going to be. I went ahead and set the engine on there, so the next step I'm going to do is see about hooking up the throttle cable, and I'll get the clutch pulley on there and figure out what sort of bracketry I'm going to have to make the band brake work on the clutch pulley. Just because, just kind of looking at everything, I don't think I'm going to do it on the rim, because I've already got enough issues with the rim trying to get the sprocket on there, and that's just would be some unnecessary extra work, especially trying to come up with some sort of bracket to hold the band brake in place around that hub. So it's going to go on the clutch pulley. But I'm going to start off with getting the throttle cable on there. Alright, so the first thing I got to do is get this apart. Alright. Now, slide this on. Alright, so I got my throttle cable here, and the first thing I need to do is take this little piece out and thread it through here. I'll go ahead and screw that in a little bit to hold it, and take this piece and put it back so it holds the cable where it doesn't flop around. Alright, now the fiddly part. Get that in there. Fair enough. Now, just hold that in place. Get our second piece sandwiched around there. I need at least 3 hands. I think that actually got started there. Just gonna snug these down. I need to over tighten. All right. And it seems to work. So far, so good. All right, now I got to get the breather and carburetor cover off of here so I can get to the throttle on the engine that's underneath. Alright, now we got to the guts of it. Alright, this screw right here is actually what is going to hold the cable portion. Actually, I stand corrected. I'm not going to use this back screw right here to mount the cable. I'm actually going to go in from the front here where it'll clamp down there and the end of the cable will go here. Just because if I go from the back, the cable's going to have to do a 180 because this is the back of the engine and it's coming from the front. Now I don't want to have it loop around like that. This way I can do a way cleaner and actually probably more simple install. Alright, so the first thing I need to do is make this throttle adjustment spring back when you let off of the throttle. This is fine for, you know, if you're using it on a rototiller or something like that. But we want it to go back to the idle position whenever you let off the throttle. So I'm going to simply do that by loosening this top nut right here, because there is a spring washer underneath that keeps the tension on it. So if I just loosen it a few turns to free it up, it comes back whenever you let off, which is exactly what we want. And I'm not going to do anything else to that. Now I just need to loosen up this screw right here, because this is where we're going to be clamping in the cable, the body of the cable, and the wire part is going to go and clamp in right here. Now I'm going to try to get this out, and it's got a nut here that just kind of spins, so I'm going to use this to hold on to the nut and see if I can get this screw out. It's just wanting to slip. Try a different screwdriver. That's even worse. Alright, go the next size up. That just wants to strip out. So I'm just going to take this whole apparatus off of here. Remember to take this funky thing off, and there is the spring washer. It's like a wobbly, warped washer that acts as a spring, and then you just remember that this piece hooks on right here, the same place as the idle adjustment screw. Of course, this spring's going to cause me issues, but we want to keep it there because that helps retract this when the throttle's off. I just need to try to get this bottom spring unhooked. I'll just unhook it from the front because I can reach that. It's free from that. Let's see if I can get this and at least kind of flip it over and see what I'm working with. Okay, it's just got a retainer clip in here. I don't know if you can see that. So I just need to get that retainer out, and then if nothing else, we'll just use our own bolt and nut in there instead. I'm sure that when I do get this out, it's probably just going to go flying. That is, assuming I get it out of here. Okay, sprayed a little lube on there and went over it with a wire brush just to kind of at least get a good look at it because it was so corroded with rust. But I fiddled with it a little more to no avail, so I'm going to see about getting this little spring off of here. Alright, now I can work at this, and I'm probably just going to end up drilling that out because I'm not going to spend an hour messing with something I'm not even going to end up using. Alright, now that I can actually get a hold of this and work with it a little easier, I'm going to try one last thing before I just drill it out. So I'm holding it with this wrench, and I was thinking about using my impact screwdriver and blasting it and trying to get it out. But let's see if we can just... Success. Just needed to get a little more able to get in there. It's a lot easier when you're just holding it in your hand and not fiddling with it while it's on the engine. So that's a plus. Alright, now you can see here that this little nut has a hole in it. But as it is, the little end on the the cable that came with the throttle kit is actually just a little too big to fit in there, so I'm gonna lop it off. Alright, bet you it fits now, and of course it does. And then we just use our little screw that goes in there, and that it will be what clamps it down in there. But I'm going to go ahead and get it back on the motor before I continue on with that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get our spring back on there. Alright, put our little wobbly washer back on there. Then get our nut just barely snug. There we go. Alright. It's a little better. I'm sure it'll need a little more tweaking, but it definitely works for now. Might need to add another spring going from the governor arm up to the front just to pull it so it wants to return back all the way every time. But that will be in another step. As for this, I can just go in right through here. Thread the wire through the hole. Easier said than done, of course. I can feel it just touching my finger on the other side of the hole. So I'm going to see if I can, oops, need the proper screwdriver. See if I can just snug this down. There we go. Now, just pull this back into position. And tighten this down. And the throttle works. Still gotta make this governor arm return to its idle position, but that just means I need to run a spring from it to the front of the engine. Not a huge deal. Just needs a little tweaking, but that's to be expected. Alright, now we turn our attention to the drive side of the engine. And it would be nice if I could actually put this clutch on here with the chain side out. It fits really well. But it also, the shaft extends further out than that, so that's never going to work anyway. So it goes like this. Then we get it about flush with the shaft there. So now I've got to figure out some sort of bracketry to hold this band brake in place. Something so it can bolt in from the top, extend out even with the clutch. And the cable will come down through here and attach here so that when you squeeze the brake, it pulls the band together and wraps around the clutch and stops the chain from moving, which stops the bike. The trick is going to be making a bracket I'm assuming it's probably going to come off of these two bolts that comes out to hold this thing. So I got to think on that for a minute. I'm going to go ahead and mount the brake lever on here, but I just have the question of, do I want to put it on the throttle side like it would be on a regular motorcycle, or do I want to move it over to the left where the clutch would normally be? Well, since there isn't a clutch, I think I am going to put it on the left side. I don't really have a good rhyme or reason. That just seems like a way to do it. Just going to get that kind of on there hand tight so I can maneuver it around. And I'm probably going to need to put a little soap or something on here to get that other grip on. All right. Hopefully that never needs to come off, because it ain't going anywhere. Not without cutting it off. All right. I'm gonna kind of adjust this down to where it should probably be. Well, it's starting to come together and looking pretty good so far, if I do say so myself. Now, to get this cable hooked up to the brake lever, you just put the big end in there, and then you line up this bolt and like the other little bolt nut thingy you use to set it, and they both have grooves cut into them, or cut out of them. You just line it up and screw it in there. All right, and it's not going to come out now. All right, I've been racking my brain a bit on how I'm going to install this band brake. I found this piece of metal just laying around in my garage, and you got two mounting holes right here and here. I'm thinking I could drill two holes here, mount this bar right there, just with two bolts. And you got a hole sticking out here. I might need to like drill my holes towards the bottom of this piece of metal so this raises up a little bit. I'll just have to tinker with it and figure that part out. But this is the preliminary idea. Take the band brake, and it already kind of lines up with this hole. So, that being said, I could take a bolt, go in from the back side of this, tighten the nut down onto it right there. It would have to be a bolt that has all thread. Tighten the nut there. Run another nut down till it's about even with the back side of the pulley. So that way this could slide onto that bolt and the nut would stop it right where it needs to be. Of course, you'd have a washer as well. Put a washer on this side and a nut, and that would hold this suspended right there around the pulley. And then, since I have already another hole drilled right here, I could do the same thing of putting a bolt in from the back side, but not a nut on this side, and instead use a spacer, which this is way too long, but just for instance, put a spacer here, put a washer on this side of the spacer on the end, and then I could take my cable, once it's cut to the right length, so this would be sticking out here with a washer on it, and then I could take the cable, lay it there, put another washer on this side so it's sandwiched, tighten the whole thing down, and that will hold this part while the bottom of the cable comes down and attaches right here, so when you squeeze the handle it pinches together. This would be stationary, this part will come up, squeeze the clutch, stop the bike. Alright, so I held this piece up here and also held up the band brake and got down even level with it and lined it up to where the band brake will line up with this hole where I want it, and then I just dropped it down to where just the tops of the bolt holes were peeking out and made a little mark at the center of each hole. Now I'm just going to put a square on here and draw these lines out and then measure up, and I'm going to drill the 2 holes in the center, but even though I'm using 5/16 bolts, I'm actually going to use a 3/8 drill, so that way they're a little oversized so I have just a little bit of wiggle room. Alright, this is the hole that I want to use to mount my bolt for mounting the band brake. And I went ahead and got a 3/8 bolt because it fits nice and snug in here and won't have any slop. But that's a 5/16 hole, so I got to oversize that. Since I had to grind away some of this paint on here when I was cleaning up those drill holes, I went ahead and hit this with some of that silver paint just to give it some protection. Forgot my lock washer. Do over. Mulligan. Okay, let's try this again. Eventually I'll get it. Alright, now I just need to get a wrench and tighten these down. I don't want to go too crazy with tightening because this is an aluminum block after all. Last thing I want to do is strip it out. Alright, now I'll put the clutch back on here. Now I just need to find what I did with my other 3/8 inch nuts. Here's one of them. I'm just going to run this in until the front side is about even with the back side of the clutch, and then stick the band brake on, put the pretty side up, and I can just adjust this to where it's pretty much even with the clutch, and that's it about right there. Actually, I forgot to put the washer on here. All right. Anybody see what I did with the third nut? Found it. It had somehow managed its way stuck to my magnet on the side of my bench. I'll lift this up off of the clutch. All right, so far so good. All right, now I've got a 2.5 by 1/4 inch bolt with a washer on it. I'm going to stick in from the back side here, and then I need to measure out to see how much of a spacer I need. Looks like about 1.5 inches. So just for poo-poos and ha-has, I decided to measure that scrap piece of tubing that I was using as a for instant spacer, and it just so happens to be 1.5 inches. So that would go there. All right, step number 1 here was to remove the inner cable, and now I just have the outer part here, and I just taped it up onto the handlebars where the brake lever is, because it's not going to do us any good, and we definitely won't be doing ourselves any favors if we cut the cable with the wire still inside of it. Well, I'm all dressed up and no place to go. I have this marked, and I don't have anything to cut it with. All right, no going back now. Of course, now I'm gonna have to poke a nail down the end of it to open the hole back up where it got smashed. Maybe the wire cutters were about it. Okay, crisis averted. I just brought it over to the bench grinder and just ground down the area that was smashed. And now it's fine. That's why it's always a good idea to not get bent out of shape when things get bent out of shape. Haha. See if I can get this sandwiched in here somehow, maybe, possibly, sometime today. And now I'll see if I can actually tighten this mess up. Wants to just squeeze it out. That's no good. Try this one more time, and if it's a fail, we'll move on to something else. Well, it was an idea, and unfortunately, that's all it was. Got to figure something else out. I have the workings here, I just need to figure out how to make it work. Okay, been brainstorming, and this is what I come up with. What if I just make a L bracket come off of here and just stick out this way? Better angle. Mount it to the hole here and have it stick out right here in front where I want it. Take this guy off, which is a cable clamp, and mount it to the L bracket. Digging around in my scrap metal, which I don't have a lot of, I did find this little piece of aluminum, which I wonder what the odds are I could stick that in the vise and bash it until it's an L shape. One way to find out. Alright, now I just need a wham bammer. Looks like an L bracket to me. Just need to mark the hole. Eyeball it and mark where the cable attachment needs to go. Somewhere in that vicinity. Now I just need to rob this off of here. Alright, so I went ahead and drilled the bracket, and after drilling the holes, you know, went over it with the bench grinder to clean them up. I drilled the one to mount it to that bracket, and I couldn't find a tap the same size as that screw that was holding the cable clamp onto the engine, so I just oversized it a little bit, and I'll just use a nut on the bottom. Alright, now I'll go ahead and install the bracket. This bolt is definitely too long, but it's what I have handy right now. I'll probably end up replacing it with a 1/2 inch bolt and not 1 inch long, because that's really excessive. And I'll eventually need to upgrade this bolt to something a little bigger. This thing is T90. Actually, I think I'm going to put it through the bottoms, because it's a Phillips head that'll make it a little easier to hold on to it. And I just noticed that this is not shaped the same on both sides. So, to the bench grinder. Now I gotta let that cool off because it's gonna be smoking hot. Alright, let's see if we can get this put together. Despite the long screw and despite the tiny screw, which is comically small. But I can always go to the hardware store and get something more appropriate. Right now it's just proof of concept. And a test on whether or not I can start this tiny little nut on here. There we go. Let's see how much better this works when you're using the right parts. Alright, now I just need a tiny little screwdriver and a tiny little wrench. Apparently I don't have a microscopic wrench small enough to hold this, so I'll just use some needle nose. Alright, that's secure. Alright, now we need to snip all this excess off of here. But make sure we leave enough to play with. There we go. Now we got this little guy that has a Allen bit set screw in the end of it. Cable goes through there, and then you use the set screw to tighten it down. And it goes right in here. Now I'm going to squeeze the band brake up a little bit just to get a little bit of tension on it. And start tightening this down. Alright. Well, looks like I'm going to have to do some adjusting. It works, but Needs to have more tension. So I'll just loosen it up. Pull up more on the band brake. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Awesome. Need to cut the excess off. And there is a functioning band brake. That took a lot longer than I thought it would. Alright, the sun is hanging low in the sky. I'm tired and I'm hungry. But this one is really getting close. One more video and we'll be wrapping it up. Still gotta address the seat. I've got to paint the wheels because they're white and I'd rather them be glossy black. A few little odds and ends, like attaching a spring here to the governor so it snaps all the way back when you have the throttle off. Taking care of these chintzy screws and stuff that I have going there and replacing with something better. I've got to, I guess the biggest thing is mount the sprocket to the back wheel somehow, but I already have an idea of how I'm going to at least try that initially and see if it works. I'm probably going to end up using the original gas tank just because I set it on there and it actually looked okay. And I think this is the way the bike looks. If I were to sit anything on top right here, it would just look like a wart. It wouldn't look very good at all. But thanks for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll know when part 3 comes out. Be sure and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I'll see you.